The divine paradox. Why God's mercy is greatest in your worst moments. A hope that shouldn't exist. Imagine standing in the ruins of your city. Everything you thought was secure, gone. The temple, once a beacon of God's presence, reduced to rubble. People you love, scattered or enslaved. Your nation, judged. In this moment of utter devastation, hope should be impossible. Yet, in the book of Lamentations, amid Israel's deepest despair, the prophet Jeremiah does something radical. He dares to hope. But why? What does he see that others don't? The answer lies in Lamentations 3, verses 21 to 23, a passage that challenges how we understand suffering, mercy, and divine faithfulness. This isn't just an ancient lament. It's a theological paradox that could change how you view God's presence in your own darkest moments. Setting the stage, the situation of Lamentations. Lamentations isn't a book of casual reflection. It's the raw cry of a prophet who has watched God's people suffer the full weight of divine judgment. Historical context: the destruction of Jerusalem, 586 BC. Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar lays siege to Jerusalem. After months of famine, the city falls. The temple is burned. Thousands are taken captive. God's judgment fulfilled. This isn't random destruction. It's the fulfillment of God's warning in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 15 to 68. If Israel broke the covenant, exile and suffering would follow. Jeremiah's role. The prophet had warned them for years, as seen in Jeremiah chapter 25, verses 4 to 11, yet no one listened. Now he stands amid the wreckage, witnessing divine justice firsthand. This background is crucial because it reveals the seeming contradiction in Lamentations chapter 3. How can Jeremiah speak of God's unfailing mercies when he is living through God's judgment? Breaking down Lamentations chapter 3, verses 21 to 23, the principle of renewed mercy. The passage begins with an intentional mental shift. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3, 21 to 23, NIV, key observations. Yet this I call to mind. Memory is a theological act. Hope isn't about circumstances, but about remembering truth. Because of the Lord's great love, the Hebrew word hesed, or steadfast love, is covenantal. Even in discipline, God remains committed. We are not consumed. The people deserve destruction, but divine restraint reveals something deeper than justice mercy. His compassions never fail. The Hebrew term for compassions, rahamim, is linked to a mother's womb, implying deep, innate care. They are new every morning. God's mercy is not static. It's a living, renewing force. Great is your faithfulness. Faithfulness isn't measured by immediate relief, but by God's unchanging nature. The tension here is clear. God's judgment is real, but his mercy is even more persistent, is even more. Unexpected biblical connections. To understand how this paradox functions, let's compare it to other scriptural themes. First, the burning bush not consumed, Exodus chapter 3, verse 2. Moses encounters a bush that burns yet isn't consumed. This mirrors the idea in Lamentations. God's people experience fire, but are not utterly destroyed. Why? Because divine presence sustains them. Next, mourning as a symbol of resurrection. Mark chapter 16, verses 2 to 6. Jeremiah speaks of mercies new every morning. Mourning in Scripture often signifies renewal. Manna in the wilderness appeared each morning. Exodus chapter 16, verse 21. Jesus rose from the dead in the morning. God's anger lasts for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Psalm chapter 30, verse 5. Morning represents a fresh start, not because of human effort, but because God acts faithfully. Then law and mercy, balancing judgment and love. Romans chapter 11, verse 22. Paul warns, consider the kindness and severity of God. The same God who disciplines also restores. This isn't contradiction, it's the full nature of divine righteousness. Finally, Christ as the ultimate fulfillment. Lamentations chapter 3 verses 22 to 23 ultimately points us to Jesus. How? He embodies God's faithfulness. John chapter 1 verse 14. His mercies are revealed in the cross. Romans chapter 5 verse 8. His resurrection is the ultimate new morning that secures eternal mercy. What is this verse really teaching? Instead of assuming traditional interpretations, let's strip this passage to its core claims. Core truth number 1, God's mercy is rooted in His nature, not in our actions. This means mercy isn't a reward, but an extension of who God is. Application. Stop basing your hope on your spiritual performance. Anchor it in God's nature. Core truth number 2, mercy and judgment coexist. Lamentations shows that God doesn't eliminate suffering. He limits its destruction. Application. When you suffer, don't assume God has abandoned you. Look for His sustaining presence. Core truth number 3. Renewed mercy requires active recollection. Jeremiah didn't feel hopeful. He chose to remember truth. Aplangist. Touch. Build habits of spiritual memory, like journaling, prayer, and scripture meditation, to counter despair. Practical applications for everyday life. Understanding theology is meaningless without action. Here are 2 ways to integrate these truths. First, develop a daily practice of remembering God's faithfulness. Create a mercy journal where you write one instance of God's provision each day. This rewires your brain to recognize divine faithfulness, combating anxiety and despair. Second, reframe your trials as an opportunity to see mercy. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "Where is God's mercy in this?" For example, Paul's thorn in the flesh was an affliction, yet it was also a mercy. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 to 9. Conclusion. The mercy that doesn't make sense. Lamentations. Chapter 3, verses 21 to 23 isn't a comforting verse despite suffering. It's a verse that exists because of suffering. God's mercy is most visible, not in prosperity, but in the ruins of our expectations. The gospel itself is built on this paradox. The worst moment in history, the crucifixion, became the foundation of redemption. So the next time life collapses around you, don't assume God has left. Remember, His mercies are new every morning. Even if all you see is ashes, the dawn is coming. If you've gotten any value out of our time together, then smash that like button. And don't forget to share and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.